Chapter 9 Supreme Renunciation Uttam Tyag. Whenever discussion on the religion of supreme renunciation is held, normally the giving of gifts, that is Dhan, is understood to be renunciation. In the name of Tyag, the songs of Dhan only are sung. People are encouraged to give charity. The common people are not able to distinguish between Dhan and Tyag, but we feel astonished when the erudite persons also, who have been delivering lectures on the religion of supreme renunciation, do not explain or they do not understand themselves that there is something called Tyag other than Dhan. In Janagam, Dhan has also been called as Tyag, and encouragement for giving of gifts has also been given to the fullest extent. Though Dhan has got its own utility, its importance is also there. Nevertheless, when we go into deep and think from the real point of view, there appears to be a vast difference between Dhan and Tyag. Tyag is Dharma and Dhan is Punya. The renouncers do not possess at all even a trace of possessions, whereas a lot of worldly beings may be found in the possession of the donors. Acharya Jain in Pravchan commentary named Tatparivritti has given the definition of renunciation as under: Nij Shuddhatma Parigraham Kritva Bahya Abhyantar Parigraha Nivritti Tyagah. Desistant from attachment to the external and internal possessions along with engrossment in one's own pure self is called renunciation. It has also been described in Baras Anuvikam as under Nivvegatiyam Bhavai Moham Chai Un Savvadavvesu Jotassa Havit Chago Iti Bhanidam Jinvarindehi. Lord Janendra has preached that the one who keeps one's thought activity totally detached from the world, the body and the sensual lust after renouncing attachment with all other objects possesses the religion of renunciation. In Tatvarth Rajvartik, Shri Aklankadev has said that giving up of attachment with living things, with wife, children, servants, cow, etc., and non-living things, with fields, houses, silver, gold, etc., is called renunciation. From the above-mentioned statements, it becomes clear that although the word renunciation is desistance-oriented and it includes renunciation of both the external and the internal possessions, yet in the religion of renunciation, engrossment in the pure self, that is Shuddhopayog and Shuddha Parinati, are also included. One more thing that becomes evident from the above is that renouncement is done not of the non-self things, but of delusion, attachment and aversion arising in the self for the non-self things. Because the non-self things are clearly separate entities, their adoption even till today has not been possible. Therefore, where does the question of the renunciation arise? Those are being treated and believed as one's own things. The feeling of attachment and aversion has been inculcated in them. Hence, knowing and believing them as one's own is actually to be renounced. This is the only reason why real renouncement takes place only in the self-soul, that is in the realm of one's knowledge, and not in or of the non-self things. Acharya Kundakundadev has given this very interpretation in Samaysaar as follows: Savve bhave jamma Pachakkhai parettinadunam Tamma pachakhanam Ranam niyama munayavam. The discriminative knowledge of the self leads to the discarding of all alien dispositions, knowing them to be entirely foreign to the nature of the self. Therefore, in reality, this discriminative knowledge of the self should be known as pratyakhyan, that is renunciation or tyag. Tyag actually takes place in the realm of knowledge only, that is relinquishing the sense of attachment with all alien dispositions, knowing them to be entirely foreign to the nature of the self, is assuredly Tyag. Acharya Amritchandra has examined this thing in Atmakhyati commentary on Samaysaar, Gatha 35, with an example as under: A person, due to ignorance, having brought someone other's cloth from washerman's house, treating it as his own, is sleeping by putting it on, and is, of his own, ignorant about the reality. But when the other person, catching one end of that cloth, pulls it off, makes him uncovered and tells, "You please get up quickly, be attentive, this cloth of mine has got exchanged. This is mine, hence give it to me." Then he, having listened to his repeatedly told sentence, ascertains by all distinguishing features that certainly this cloth is of some other person only. Thus, having attained the discriminative knowledge, he immediately forsakes that cloth. Similarly, the knowing self too, having accepted the properties of foreign substances due to ignorance, knowing them as his own, is sleeping by identifying them with the self and is becoming ignorant of his own accord. When the revered and enlightened Acharya, having discriminated the self from alien dispositions, makes him understand the true nature of the conscious self and admonishes, "Thou awake quickly, be attentive. Thine, this soul, is in reality the embodiment of knowledge only." Then he, having listened to this continuously, repeated Agam Vakya and ascertaining by all distinguishing features that these various emotional features of the self are the alien dispositions only, thus having attained the discriminative knowledge, immediately forsakes all alien dispositions. From the above statement, this point becomes quite clear that renouncement is done by knowing the not-self as the not-self. This thing is not found in Dhan. Dhan is giving of that very thing which is possessed by oneself. The foreign substance can be renounced but cannot be donated. Picking someone other's thing and giving it to some other person is not donation but is theft. Similarly, renouncement is done by knowing a thing as unuseful and disadvantageous, but donation is given of the useful and advantageous things. With the intention of help, presenting our useful thing to a worthy person is called donation. Acharya Swami has given the definition of Dhan in the 7th chapter of Tattvartha Sutra as follows: Anugrahartham swasyati sargo dhanam. Donation, that is charity, is giving of the one's wealth, etc. to another person for mutual benefit. Acharya Pujyapad has written in Sarvartha Siddhi, Paranugraha buddhaya swasyati sarjanam dhanam. Let the other be benefited. With this feeling, to donate one's useful thing is donation. In Dhan, the feeling of others' benefit is important and one's own benefit is not prominent. But in Tyag, one's own benefit is everything. Delusion, attachment and aversion are not given up for others' sake or benefit. It is a different thing that by getting inspiration from one's own renunciation or due to any other reason, the other person may also get benefited. If someone gives donation, it is also his duty to take care of the cause for which the donation is given. Perhaps it may happen that you have constructed an inn for providing lodging facility to the pilgrims, and it might have been subletted. You may have given money for the renovation of the Janalaya, and the committee members might have spent it for fixing the air conditioner for their comfort. You may have given money for the propagation and expounding of the religion of passionlessness, and that money is spent in propagating desires in the name of religion. You may have given money for religious and ethical teaching, and that money is being squandered in providing legal education. Some people may say you have given the donation. What have now you to do with what is happening to that? Where it is being spent? Who was eating it? When you have given it up, why do you bother about it? Only those people indulge in such talk who either don't know the definition of Dhan or want to do or are doing some misappropriation because they want that they should be allowed to do whatever they like. None should comment or criticize them. Those who want to do the right work are not perturbed if the donor inquires from them as to whether the money is being utilized for the purpose or aim for which it was donated. They forget that the donor has not forsaken the money but has donated it to achieve some particular object. The donation is given with the idea of beneficence. Hence, the desire of inquiring and knowing about the utilization does arise in the mind of the wise donor also. Even in bestowing knowledge, when someone explains or teaches something to anybody, the thought of this type, whether the person concerned is understanding the matter or not, does not arise in the mind of the teacher. The donor has not given up the attachment for money or wealth. Had it been given up, why would then he be trying to earn 3 lakhs after donating 1 lakh? His effort for earning is continuing in full swing. From this it is proved that donation is not being given due to abandonment of attachment for money, but it is given with the desire of benefiting others. It is of course a different thing that his greed passion has somewhat diminished, otherwise donation would not be possible. But it is decreased, has not ended. Had it been ended, it would have been called Tyag. Even in the partial absence of delusion or attachment, the religion of renunciation gets manifested. This is the reason why the forsaker does not pay attention to what he has forsaken. Its remembrance also should not arise. If it arises, how could it be Tyag? Even the thought of looking after the abandoned things does not arise in him, because now he does not consider or know it as his own thing, and also he does not have attachment with it. Whatever may happen to the thing forsaken, he is unconcerned. What has he to do with it? When a Chakravarti becomes a naked Digambar saint by renouncing the whole kingdom and all sorts of possessions, no anxiety perturbs him as to what would happen to this kingdom, who will look after this. If it is there, he cannot be a Tyagi. What has he to do with that kingdom? He has given up the whole kingdom and all sorts of possessions for the benefit of the self, for taking care of the self-soul. If he remains worried about the kingdom and possessions, what has he then given up? What did he used to do about the kingdom? Only he used to worry about it, and that he is still doing. Thus we see that in Dan the feeling of others' benefit is prominent, and in Tyag the benefit of the self is the sole concern. Here you may ask one question. It has been said above that what is of the self cannot be given or attributed to others, and what can be given cannot be of the self. The other is other, the self is self. Giving off or giving up of the self is not possible, and taking or accepting the other is not possible. On one side you say like this, and on the other side you also say that Dan is given of one's own thing. When the other is not at all of the self, how to abandon it then? And that which cannot be given, how to give or donate it? Similarly, when no one can do good or bad to others, and all are themselves the doers and bearers of their good and bad deeds, where does the question of doing good to others arise? My reply is, what you say is quite right, but the main point to understand is that Dan is Vyavahar Dharma, that is, it is called religion conventionally, and Tyag is Nishchay Dharma, that is the real true religion of the self. Wealth, etc., non-self substances on which we have our possession from worldly angle are ours. From Vyavahar point of view, considering them as ours, donation is given. Taking and giving itself is Vyavahar, but in Nishchay, no question of taking and giving arises. Now, what remains is the question about forsaking the non-self substances. As a matter of fact, knowing the other things as par is in itself their renunciation. What else is renunciation other than this? Those are assuredly par, what to renounce them? But the thing is that we treat them as our own and have the feeling of attachment with them. Therefore, treating them our own and keeping a feeling of attachment with them are to be given up. Hence, it is truly said that having known par as par, to give up the feeling of attachment with them is the real Tyag, renunciation. On thinking deeply, we find that Tyag is done of delusion, attachment and aversion only. The other non-self things are automatically renounced as a consequence of renunciation of delusion, attachment, aversion. Those are already in the renounced state. On account of this reason only, the omniscient Lord Jin is said to be an absolute renouncer of attachment and aversion. One can argue that just now it was stated that renouncement is done of other non-self things, and now it is being stated that Tyag is done of delusion, attachment and aversion. Yes, from the spiritual point of view, Moh, Rag, Dvesh are also par. Although they take birth in the self, nevertheless these are not the intrinsic nature of the self. Therefore, in metaphysics, those have also been stated as par. So far as the question of beneficence is concerned, the thing is that although none can do good or bad to anybody, nevertheless the feeling of doing good to others cannot help arising even in the heart of a right believer, because presently the feeling of attachment exists in them. Another point is that from the real standpoint, none can do good or bad of anybody, but from the empirical point of view, doing good or bad to one another has also been mentioned and preached in the scriptures. May that statement be figurative only, may it be simply a narration, but it is there. Dan is Vyavahar Dharma. Hence it takes place preceded by the conceptual feeling of beneficence. This is the reason that it is the cause of bondage of punya, but it is not the cause of getting rid of bondage. The persons who, presuming it to be Nishchay Dharma, consider it to be the cause of getting rid of bondage are mistaken, and along with them, those persons also are mistaken who don't believe it even the cause of bondage of punya, that is, who do not accept it even as Vyavahar Dharma. Tyag is done of bad things and dan of good things. What is being preached is give up anger, give up pride, give up deceit, give up greed. Nobody says give up knowledge, emotional feelings, that is influx in the form of delusion, attachment and aversion, which are miseries incarnate, create miseries and are harmful to the soul, are surely worth giving up, are worth renouncing, and the renouncement of these alone is actually done. Along with these asravs, the objects which provide shelter to these asrav, that is by paying attention to which delusion, attachment, aversion get generated, such as the son, daughter, etc., animate things, and wealth, house, etc., inanimate things, are also renounced. But the important thing is to forsake delusion, attachment, and aversion. Because by giving up delusion, attachment, aversion, the renouncement of these assuredly takes place, but merely by giving up these, there is no guarantee that delusion, attachment, aversion will surely get vanished. Many people understand Tyag and Dan as synonymous. This belief is totally wrong. Not only these two words are not synonymous, but to a certain extent, their traits are found to be contradictory to each other. If these two words were synonymous, the use of either word in place of the other one could be done easily. But when we use them as such, then the meaning gets changed totally. For example, Dan is described as of 4 kinds. 1. Ahar Dan, 2. Aushadhi Dan, 3. Gyan Dan, 4. Abhay Dan. Now if we make the use of Tyag in place of the word Dan, the whole thing becomes quite clear. Are Ahar Dan and Ahar Tyag one and the same thing? Likewise, can Aushadhi Dan and Aushadhi Tyag be said to be one and the same thing? No, never. Because in Ahar Dan and Aushadhi Dan, food and medicines are given to the other worthy recipients. Whereas in Ahar Tyag and Aushadhi Tyag, things of food and medicine are forsaken. In Ahar Tyag and Aushadhi Tyag, the question of giving anything to anybody does not arise at all. Similarly, in Ahar Dan and Aushadhi Dan, also the question of giving up food and medicine does not arise. One can give the gift of food and also can take food as much as one likes. There is no restriction. But if food is given up, then no food or drink can be taken. In case of Ahar and Aushadhi, perhaps the above discussion may not appear to be very odd, but when the word Gyan Tyag in place of Gyan Dan is used, the matter will then appear totally odd. Is knowledge also forsaken? Is knowledge also worth giving up? Is it possible to forsake knowledge? The same thing should be remembered in respect of Abhay Dan and Abhay Tyag. One more thing needs clarification. In Dan, minimum 2 parties are required, and the object of gift connecting both the parties is also required. The donor of food, the recipient of food, and the food. The donor of medicine, the recipient of medicine, and the medicine. Without these 3 things, the gift of food and medicine is not possible. If there is no recipient, then whom to give? If the thing is not there, then what to give? But for Tyag, nothing is required. Tyag of that thing which is not available with us can also be done. For example, I will not marry. In this oath, what has been given up? Wedding? But when wedding is not taken place, how to give it up? Certainly, therefore, only the desire of wedding is forsaken. Similarly, Tyag is done of all sorts of possessions and of all the objects. But where do we have all sorts of possessions in the form of all sorts of foreign objects? Hence, Tyag is done only of the desire of possessing those objects and of the attachment towards those objects. We are totally free for Tyag, that is for renouncing the objects and possessions. In that process, the object which we renounce, nobody is required to receive, and the object is also not required. Thus we see that Dan is a dependent activity, whereas Tyag is wholly independent. The activity which cannot be accomplished without the company of others cannot be the true religion. Religion is not the name of attachment or company of other non-self things, but it consists in detachment, In Tyag Dharma, the existence of the company of other non-self things is not desirable. The word Tyag itself indicates detachment. Although Shuddha Parinati is included in Tyag Dharma, but the company or attachment of other non-self objects is not at all there. There are some such objects of which relinquishment Tyag only is observed and gift is not given. Some objects are of such type of which donation only is given. Tyag is not possible. Wife, parents, son, etc., and attachment, aversion, etc. can be given up, but these cannot be donated. Knowledge and shelter can be imparted as a gift, but these are not given up. And medicine, food, money, etc. can be given up as well as can be donated. In scriptures, at some places the words Tyag and Dan have been used for the same meaning. This reason also is greatly responsible for spreading the misconception of these two are synonymous. For spreading the misconception that these two are synonymous. In Shastra, wherever the connotations are used, the meaning of those is thus Nishchay Dan means Tyag and Vyavahar Tyag means Dan. When Shastras refer to Dan, it means Dan only, and when they talk of Nishchay Dan, it means Tyag Dharma only. Likewise, when the word Tyag is used, it means Tyag Dharma, and when Vyavahar Tyag is talked about, it does mean Dan. Similar use of these words has been made in the hymn Dashlakshan Pujan also. In it is said, Uttam Tyag kayo jagsara, Aushadhi Shastra Abhay Ahara, Nishchay Raga Dvesha Nirvare, Gyata Dono Dan Sambhare. Here above, in the first line, where the supreme Tyag Dharma has been described as utmost beneficial, thereat, along with it, 4 categories of the same have also been enumerated, which are actually 4 kinds of Dan, which have already been discussed in detail. Now the question arises, are these 4 types of Dan kinds of Tyag Dharma? But on reading the second line, the whole matter becomes clear. It is very clearly written in the second line that Nishchay Tyag is to relinquish attachment and aversion, although in the first line Vyavahar word is not used, but in the second line there being use of Nishchay, it becomes evident that the matter contained in the first line pertains to Vyavahar Tyag, that is Dan. It is made further clear in the line Gyata Dono Dan Sambhare, that is, the soul possessing right knowledge takes care of both Nishchay and Vyavahar. The word Dono Dan makes everything clear. On reading the first line, it appears that although the poet is talking of Tyag Dharma, he has enumerated the kinds of Dan. But it is not that this point may not have been in the knowledge of the poet. Because in the next line itself it becomes clear that the poet is connoting Tyag Dharma in the form of passionlessness by Nishchay Dan or Nishchay Tyag, and giving of the gift of food, etc. by the word Vyavahar Dan or Vyavahar Tyag. Dhani Sadhu Shastra Abhay Divaya Tyag Raga Virodhako. In this line of the pujan, the use of the word Divaya along with the word Shastra, sacred religious books, and Abhay, and the use of the word Tyag along with attachment and aversion indicates that Dan is done of Shastra and Abhay, and Tyag is done of Rag and Dvesh. Moreover, by using the word Dhani Sadhu, it has been made clear that these are the religions of the saint. Ahar and Aushadhi are left in this line deliberately because it is not possible for the saints to donate these. Similarly, uses can also be seen elsewhere, therefore it is essential to be careful and attentive in understanding the intention of Shastra, otherwise the meaningful purport may become meaningless. Also, one more thing worth paying attention is that if giving of food etc. will only be considered as Tyag Dharma, then one more problem will arise. It is this, that here the description of supreme forbearance etc. is done chiefly from the saints' point of view. Because in Tattvad Sutra, the 10 religions are described along with self-control, carefulness, contemplation, conquest by endurance, and conduct. All these are the forms of the duties of the saints. The homeless saints do take food and they do not donate it, but the householders, Shravaks, donate it. If giving up of food is Tyag Dharma, then the existence of Tyag Dharma will be considered more in Shravak than in the saints, which is not possible. Therefore, in fact, the name of relinquishing attachment, aversion, etc. alien states only is Tyag Dharma. Of course, Tyag Dharma in the form of relinquishing unsuitable food, etc. may he said to be possessed by the saints, but it cannot be in the form of donating food, etc. We not only do not understand the true characteristics of Tyag, but also do not understand the true characteristics of Dan. In this money-oriented era, money has become everything. Wherever there would be any talk about Dan and donors, the affluent persons will only be looked for. The modern age considers as donors only those persons who donate money. They alone are given the title of Danveer. No donor of food, medicine, or knowledge would be found with the title of Danveer. Even a single right-knowledged scholar, savant, or physician is not seen in the society who has been crowned with the title of Danveer. Whatever Danveers are there are available in the wealthy persons only. What more can the business community think of other than this chap is given 1 lakh, that chap is given 5 lakhs? Only such type of discussions are held everywhere. But we find that there is no mention of donation of money in the 4 kinds of Dan. Rather, the donations of food, medicine, knowledge, and shelter are only enumerated. Where has this Paisa Dan come from? Dan was the activity of magnanimous persons which now has been vitiated by persons avaricious of honor and money. Give donation to our institute and you will get the benefit of all the 4 Dans. Propagators talking like this can be seen everywhere. Further making their point clear, they will say, in the hostel, the students live, they take food in the same hostel mess. As such, it would be Ahar Dan also. They are studying general education with medical science, etc., so it would be Gyan Dan. If they fall ill, they are taken for treatment at the hospital, this is Aushadhi Dan, and they do exercise in the gymnasium, this amounts to Abhay Dan. Now I ask, is food given to unworthy persons Ahar Dan? It is also said, Mithyatvagrasta chitteshu charitrabhasa bhagishu dosha yaiva bhaved danam payah panami vahishu. Giving of charity to misbelievers possessing the so-called conduct is just like feeding milk to snakes, which amounts to inviting misfortune. In the Shastras, the recipients are described to be of 3 kinds. All these are from the 4th Gunasthan onwards, that is, from the stage of avowless right belief and above. Is general education right knowledge or wrong knowledge? Similarly, is donating the non-eatable medicines a gift of medicines? How would there be charity or Tyag Dharma in donating non-eatable medicines, the taking of which is described as vice? But who bothers about all these things? The donors are greedy of getting fame and the recipients are greedy of money. These greedy persons have vitiated charity, which takes birth only in the absence of greed. It is indeed a pity that during the great festival of 10 religions, on the day fixed for discussion of Tyag Dharma, people only talk about donation and the day is lost in talking and giving donations without even pondering over the true nature of Tyag Dharma. In the society, the learned man who interprets the true characteristics of Tyag Dharma is not treated as a great savant, but that professional Pandit is treated as a great Pandit who can collect more and more donation. It is the misfortune of our society that the measurement of greatness of Pandit and Sadhu is not done on the basis of their knowledge and continence, but on the basis of their capacity for collecting money in the name of Dan. This tendency has done a great harm to the society and to religion as well. The attention of Pandit and Sadhu is diverted from knowledge and continence and is fixed on collection of chanda. Their energy is being consumed in collecting the chanda in the name of religion, particularly in the name of Tyag Dharma and Dan. The acquiring of knowledge and meditation have gone in the background. It is this reason why on the day of Uttam Tyag Dharma, instead of talking about Tyag, we start singing the songs of Dan. Even not of Dan, but of donors. Not only this, even real donors are sidetracked. People start flattering the persons who are avaricious of name and fame. All this looks to be very odd. But what can be done? Except that we ourselves get away from such things and try to understand and explain to others the true characteristics of Tyag Dharma. Only the fortunate few will understand and follow, and for the rest, what is destined to happen will happen. Although in the 4 kinds of Dan, paisa is not included, nevertheless money also can be donated and is being donated too. Not to believe Paisa Dan as charity is not being advocated, but only this much has been clarified that money is not everything. The recipient is greater than the donor. But this thing is meaningful when the donor and the recipient both are adorable. The saint takes Ahardan and the householders give Ahardan. The saint is a renouncier and possessor of Tyag Dharma. The householder is a donor, hence he accumulates punya. The promulgator of the path to liberation and the renouncier of all external as well as internal possessions was Bhagwan Adinath. In his ascetic life, the giver of the Ahardan was King Shreyansh, who has been acknowledged as the founder of the path of donation. The householder, after having bowed 9 times, gives Ahardan to Muniraj, the homeless and possessionless naked saint. Nowadays, the alms beggars, by flattering the donors, have made them proud and arrogant instead of allowing them to remain just donors. The renouncier is always greater than the donor because Tyag is Dharma and Dan is Punya. A question which may arise here is that for Ahardan, this is all right. But how would this thing be possible in case of Gyan Dan? The answer is like this. Gyan Dan means to make others understand or to impart knowledge. The urge of making others understand, being an auspicious thought, is the cause of Punya Bandha. Hence, the person imparting knowledge gets the benefit of Punya, whereas the person who is understanding gets the benefit of knowledge. From the benefit point of view, the receiver of Gyan Dan is benefited more. Someone may say here, you are unnecessarily criticizing the donors and the recipients of money. If it would not be so, how would then the institutions run? My answer to this is that the aim of the above discussion is not to criticize donors, but to safeguard their interest by explaining the real characteristics and purpose of charity, which the donors should bear in mind in order to get the full benefit from such donations. Now, as regards the institutions, we need not worry at all. If people understand the real purpose and nature of charity, the religious institutions would not be starved, but will receive manifold more donations than what they are receiving at present from people who want name and fame in exchange for charity. Maybe the bogus institutions are closed, but what if that this alone should be their destination? The donation given with vicious feelings cannot be called dan. Charity is given cheerfully with virtuous feelings. Analyzing the fruits of dan, it is said, Dan de mana harish vishekhe, is bhav jas par bhav sukh dekhe. Here, the outcome of dan is stated to be the gain of fame in this birth and happiness in the next birth, but not moksha. And along with giving of dan, the stipulation of extraordinary cheerfulness is also put. Dan given cheerfully with extraordinary happiness only is fruitful, but if given under someone's pressure or with the desire of getting name and fame, etc., does not yield the desired fruit. On meeting a virtuous recipient, the donor must feel the same kind of happiness which a shopkeeper feels to find a buyer. What to say of religion, even punya is not possible from charity which is given uncheerfully and with aspirations of worldly gains. Charity given without begging is of the highest grade. Also, dan given on begging is somewhat better than not giving. But giving under pressure or compulsion with uncheerfulness cannot be called dan. Also, it is said, बिन मांगे दे दूध बराबर, मांगे दे सो पानी, वह देना है खून बराबर, जामे खींचा तानी. One who donates reluctantly under pressure and after controversy does not get fame also in this world, and having done punya bandha, the question of getting facility in the next world also does not arise. Rather, people make fun of him and praise the donor in the words, "Oh friend, you have milked the male buffalo." The donation of money, etc., given cheerfully for establishing the glory of Ahimsa religion and for the propagation of reality, the donation of food, etc., given to the totally possessionless saints, etc., the benedictory discourses delivered to the lovers of truth, and writing off or getting written the Shastras and distributing the same from door to door, etc., Gyandan, all these, if given without any desire of getting anything in exchange, being virtuous deeds, are the cause of Punya Bandha. The urge for the aforesaid dan does arise in Jnani Jeev, and according to their capacity and stage of spiritual development, they also give donation abundantly, but do not consider nor recognize it as Tyag Dharma. Tyag Dharma also found in the Jnani Shravak as per their position and state of spiritual growth, and they regard and know it alone as the real Tyag Dharma. Having listened to the analytical criticism of the donors donating with the greed of getting fame, etc., the non-donors need not feel happy. Giving is better than not giving, may it be even for the sake of name. By their giving, they may not get its true benefit, but the mission of propagation of reality, etc., does get strengthened. It is a different thing that this is not the real charity, dhan. Therefore, by understanding the true characteristics of charity, we must do dhan according to our capacity and ability. Inspiring people for giving charity, Acharya Padmanandi has written as under Satpatreshu yatha shakti danam deyam grahasthitaihi danahina bhavet tesham nishphalaiva grahasthita. The householder Shravak must necessarily give charity as per their capacity to the worldly recipients, because without charity their life is not worth living. It is fruitless. On getting the left out food, even the crow does not eat it alone, but eats only after calling other colleagues. Hence, if instead of utilizing the possessed wealth in the religious and social activities, one would utilize it only in one's own enjoyment, then he would be treated as worse than even the crow. What is being stated here is not with a view to belittle or discourage charity, but what is intended is to show clearly the difference between Tyag and Dhan. The essential condition of charity is that whatever is to be given, how much is to be given, at least that much must necessarily be available with the giver. Otherwise, what will he give and from where will he give? But in Tyag, it is not so. The thing which is not available with us can also be given up. Tyag is based on the foundation of the feeling, I will not try to achieve it, nor will accept it even on its being available easily and effortlessly. In fact, this is not the abdication of that thing, but it is the abdication of attachment concerning to or likely to arise about that thing. A millionaire can donate at the most a few lakhs of rupees, but abdication is possible even of all the wealth of the three worlds. In the vow of limiting their belongings after fixing the measure of one's worldly possessions, rest of all the belongings are given up. That limit can be fixed even beyond what one possesses at the moment of taking the vow. For example, one who has got belongings worth rupees 10,000 can even fix up the measure of his belongings up to rupees 1 lakh. Even it being so, he is assuredly an abdicator. But without fixing up the measure of keeping belongings with oneself, even crores of rupees are given in charity. Even then, he will not be considered an abdicator. Charity does not put any restriction on the extent of earning. You may earn as much as you like. But as regards abdication, though we may not donate anything, may not give up anything, a limitation on earning, a restriction on it is essential. In charity, what is seen is how much one has donated. It is not seen as to how much the donor has kept in his possession, whereas in abdication, it is not seen as to how much is given or is given up, but what is seen is how much one has kept in his possession or has decided to keep. The rest stands abdicated. If Tyag is measured by what is abdicated and how much, then the person giving up the position of king emperorship and accepting asceticism would be considered as the greatest abdicator. On the other hand, the totally possessionless naked Digambar saints who dwell in the highly enriched state of self-absorbedness are considered small or great by the degree of the renunciation of passions and the consequential attainment of passionlessness, and not by the criterion as to how much belongings they have given up to accept asceticism. If in Tyag, renunciation of worldly possessions were the criterion, then Bharat Chakravarti would have been considered as a great renuncier and Bhagwan Mahavir a small renuncier, because Bharat and other Chakravartis had given up 96,000 wives and the whole kingdom of the 6 portions of the land Bharat Kshetra. What could Mahavir leave when he did not have even a single wife and also did not have the kingdom of 6 portions of Bharat Kshetra land? The world also considers Bal Brahmachari as more important. How much is kept after abdicating so much is not seen or considered in Dhan, but in Tyag, what is to be noted is how much is kept and how much is left or given up. If charity consists in giving up, then Tyag is the name of not taking. One who does not accept anything is naturally greater than the one who gives something. Because one who gives something is called a donor, whereas one who does not accept anything is called Tyagi. One who has got everything is called the king, and the one who has nothing, who does not keep anything with himself, does not desire anything, is called the great king emperor. It is also said, Chah gayi chinta gayi, manua be parvah, jinhe kachu nahi chahiye, te nara shahanshah. In the world, more honor and respect is given to the renouncers in comparison to the donators. This is as it should be, because Tyag is a passionless activity of the soul and Dan an auspicious act. Tyag is Dharma and Dan is Punya. Here a question may arise as to why in the world, along with the holy word like Tyag, the unholy word Mal Mutra are added, viz. Mal Tyag, Mutra Tyag. Whereas along with Dan, which is inferior to Tyag, the holy word like Gyan is added, viz. Gyan Dan. The answer to this is that no word by itself is holy or unholy. The words are mere indicators of the substance. So far as the substance is concerned, Tyag is done only of the unholy things. The emotions such as attachment, aversion, delusion are also impure. Along with them also the word Tyag is added. But Dan is always given of the good things only. Tyag is the religion by acquiring which the soul becomes Akinchan, that is, becomes the possessor of Akinchanya Dharma. Gradually starts getting absorbed in the absolute self, gets self-absorbed and ultimately engrosses completely in the benign nature of the self. Let all the souls attain the stage of self-absorbedness and get infinite happiness by understanding the essence of the holy religion of renunciation and by giving up all sorts of external and internal possessions. With this auspicious feeling, I conclude this discussion.